welcome to class, guys. Another day in history here. Today we are going to be finding the differences in the U.S. foreign policy from the late 1800s and comparing those to the early 1900s. So as we've talked about, the U.S. Is coming to a new era in its history. They're rising in power, becoming more of a global dominating force. However, before the 1900s came, there were many defining documents that defined American foreign policy for many years. We have George Washington's farewell address that we'll cover later on as well, the Monroe Doctrine, Manifest Destiny, the March of the Flag, and the White Man's Burden, which we'll be looking at today. So I'm going to pass out a copy to share with your partner. And so the White Man's Burden was written in 1899 by Rudyard Kipling. It is basically a poem. To start off the class today, let's alternating reading each stanza. So Brooke, if you want to read the first one, Mackenzie do the second one, I'll do the third one, and so on.
Okay. Take up the white man's burden, send forth the beast ye breed. Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives' needs, to wait in heavy harness on fluttered folk and wild, your new caught sullen peoples, half devil and half child.
Take up the white man's burden in patience to abide, to veil the threat of terror and check the show of pride, by open speech and simple, and 100 times made plain, to seek another's profit and work another's gain.
All right. Take up the white man's burden, the savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, watch soft and healthly folly bring all your hopes to naught.
Take up the white man's burden, no towardly rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go mark them with your living and mark them with your dead.
Take up the white man's burden and reap his old reward, the blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of hosts ye humor, ah slowly toward the light. Why brought he us from bondage, our loved Egyptian night?
Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stood to less, nor to call loud on freedom. To cloak your weariness, be all ye cry or whisper. By all ye leave or do, the silent, swollen peoples shall weigh your gods and you.
Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly preferred laurel, the easy ungrudged praise, comes now to search your manhood through all the thankless years, cold-edged with dear-bought wisdom, the judgment of your peers.
All right, so with the context of what we've been covering in class recently about America's new empirical mindset of taking over other peoples and their country, what can you guys tell from what you just read on your first impressions? Do you guys have any guesses about what the white man's burden is?
Not being able to read all the words.
Yeah, we did have some tough words in there, some language we don't really see. So let's break apart just the title, the white man and his burden, right? So we're already talking about race, right? When it says the white man. So in contrast to the white man, who do we think of as an opposite of a white person? Someone of color, maybe, right? Okay. And a burden. What do we know a burden is?
Like something that
Something that you have to do,
Yeah,
right?
you don't have an option.
Okay, alrighty. So as we read this in stanza, well, throughout all the stanzas, basically, Kipling talks about this burden of dealing with peoples that are basically different in appearance-wise, of their skin color, and how we should deal with them. He talks about how it is the white man's job to civilize, to make these savages pure, right? So basically with that understanding, we can now go in to fill out this document here that we'll continue to fill out throughout week. The first one that we will be filling out is at the bottom of the first page, the white man's burden, which we just read. And so if you guys just want to tell me verbally the main points, which we kind of just went over. What was the main point of?
That it's the white man's job to civilize everyone else.
Okay, right on, yeah. And so who are the groups involved here? Who are not specifically mentioned, but maybe inferred that are involved?
Like white
Slaves.
women and white men and people of color.
Okay, all right. And what about the global outlook? How does this affect people? How does it affect the globe?
Would that be like slaves when they bring them over?
Sort of. We're talking more about like as an empire, right? So we're going to them, but we're changing them, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're making authoritarian governments democratic.
Like
We're
Native Americans.
yeah, we're good. We're influencing democratic values, right? So stuff like that, good. And what's the last one say there?
Threats to U.S. or other powers.
So does this threaten anybody? Is this threatening the U.S. or is it threatening something else?
Something
The
else.
others.
Yeah.
Okay, any outside force, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So now that we have this first document under our belts here, we can kind of relate it back to the learning target here, which is to define the differences between the developing U.S. foreign policy from the 1800s to the 1900s. So now this was a late 1800 example. As we move throughout the week, we will look at more recent ones and also go back to less frequent or less recent ones. So this will be the first one here that we look at. So now you guys have a better understanding of what it means to be serving the white man's burden. Thank you.